Welcome everybody to another edition of Sports Clash Radio with your host Chad Martin, JC Martin, talking college football. Another week in the books. We're approaching week 9 now coming up, and it was really kind of a boring week almost. It really wasn't a super exciting, upset-filled weekend.
There were only 3 matchups between top 25 teams.
Yeah.
And all 3 matchups came in the SEC.
Exactly. So, one of the big stories, Auburn just crushed Arkansas 56-3, rushing for 543 yards. Big turnaround for Auburn this season. They started the season kind of crappy. Everybody was calling for Gus Malzahn, please just get him out of here. It's not working out.
All he did was give up his play calling duties, and that shit got righted with quickness.
And look, and they're rolling right now. I mean, they are completely have turned this whole thing around. Alabama beat Texas A&M. We thought this game might be closer than it was.
Right, and it was close until halftime.
Yep,
and that was it.
It was over for Texas A&M at the
Just
beginning.
Alabama could not be stopped in the second half.
No, they couldn't.
Anything and everything they tried worked.
Just a machine. Unranked SMU did upset number 11 Houston. Talking about a ship going down.
Right.
Houston had everything going for them.
We've seen bad losses now from Houston to SMU and to Navy.
Yeah.
After they started off the season by beating number 3 Oklahoma.
Exactly. So it was an interesting week. Other than that, I just didn't find there wasn't a whole lot of excitement in the college football world. I mean, Jim Harbaugh's always fun to watch because he gets crazy and stuff, but he has Michigan just cranking out. I think they moved up to number 2 right now.
Yes, because Ohio State did lose to Penn State.
Well, I will say this: that whiteout game, it is watching Penn State when they have their whiteout game. When you see that crowd, that is ridiculous.
Right.
That whole thing. Sean Lee was talking about it this week, and he was talking about how it was one of the things.
We're talking about the linebacker
for the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah. He was talking about, because he played at Penn State, and he was talking about, that started up when he was first getting into Penn State, is when they first had that tradition started. He said, it started in the student section, and then it's progressed to where it is now. And he said, when you play there, it's crazy. He said, because you'll be on there, you'll start off the game, and the ground's just shaking. There's 107,000 people that attends that game, and it was nuts. I'm not surprised Ohio State lost in that game, and I mean Penn State just played their butts off on this game.
And James Franklin, when he had a couple of key victories when he was head coach at Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
Big marquee victories, and he really hasn't had that success at Penn State. That same success at what I would feel like, and I think most college football fans would feel like, is a better college football job.
Oh yeah.
Like head coach at Penn State, despite all the stuff that happened with Joe Paterno and Jerry Sandusky there at the end, if you remove that from the equation, it's one of the best college football atmospheres in the entire country. So James Franklin definitely took a better job there, but man, he finally got that key victory that he needed, that signature statement victory over Ohio State and Urban Meyer.
And every coach needs something like that if they're going to make a statement and put their stamp on a football team. And boy, did he do it with Penn State. It'd be interesting to see what happens with Penn State going forward, just off of this win. And conversely, what's going to happen to Ohio State after losing the game? Because they're in the college football playoffs if they win this game.
Absolutely.
I believe.
Well, it's hard to say because, they still have to play Michigan.
Well, that is true.
So, that game will be coming up. But the thing is, even though they have this loss to Penn State, the winner of that game is still going to represent the Big Ten in the Big Ten championship game.
Exactly.
And I think everyone expects either Ohio State or Michigan to win the Big Ten. So there's actually still a very good chance that Ohio State gets into the college football playoff. Now, that all depends on, I think, it all depends on this Washington team.
Yeah.
Because Washington's playing well. They're undefeated.
Well.
I think there were a lot of people who expected Washington to be good.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone expected them to be number 4 in the country.
Yeah, I know we didn't, because we never even mentioned them as a serious contender for number 4.
And Jake Browning, their quarterback, he's played himself into kind of an outside hopeful for the Heisman.
Yep.
But he's played well enough to deserve to be in that conversation.
He definitely does, and I tell you what, I was impressed with the kid and how he's played football. But it's going to be an interesting next few weeks leading up to this. Speaking of teams, and we talked about LSU. They've turned their season around with when Ed Orgeron took over. We thought, well, it's probably not going to change a whole lot, but it did. You talked about how you're not a fan of mid-season firings and things like that, but it has sparked this LSU team, which really is bringing that game with Florida to bear that they missed it because of the hurricane that came through. It is such a point of contention right now between those two programs. It is ridiculous.
And it should be, because, both sides dropped the metaphorical ball here. Because this was a home game for Florida.
Exactly.
And, Florida didn't want to play it. LSU had a game against South Alabama, so LSU ended up, in order to play this game, LSU ended up paying South Alabama to stay home.
Yeah, and both teams had to do that.
Yeah, it gave them their money to stay home, and now Florida, instead of having a home game against LSU, is going on the road to Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
So I think Florida really got screwed in this whole deal, because I think at the end of and I'm not sure the extent of the damage that happened in Gainesville as a result of the hurricane, but we saw a lot of games played in Florida that weekend.
Yeah, you did. And
because Florida State still played Miami down there.
Yes, they did.
And so it raises the question, had you guys not gone ahead and taken the initiative to cancel the game, looking forward because of the storm rolling in, if you guys hadn't and you had just waited it out, this game could have already been played and we're not even having to discuss it.
Yeah, and as it is, Florida's going to get the next 2 years as home games.
And they should.
And because they're giving LSU this home game, but LSU was adamant that they're not going to play on their bye week leading up to Alabama. That wasn't going to happen. And because that's this
smart.
weekend. LSU has this bye weekend. They were trying to schedule for this weekend, but they're like, no, we're not doing that with Alabama coming in.
But this Florida team doesn't look that good.
Exactly.
And I think this LSU team, the way they're playing right now, especially having a Leonard Fournette back, and he didn't even look all that healthy against Ole Miss, and he absolutely obliterated them. But you think another week Leonard Fournette has to kind of knock some rust off since he's been out for some time, since the Auburn game. But he can come in and he can just roll all over the Florida Gators defense.
Yeah, this is going to be it's going to be an interesting matchup when they do play. I know LSU athletic director Joe, I don't even know how you say his last name, Oliva,
it looks
I
like.
guess. He called the whole thing a joke. And you can't really disagree with that. Like we talked about, this is something that should have been taken care of a while back, and it wasn't. And now it's leading to all of this and a lot of bad blood and hurt feelings, which, may end up giving us a pretty good, intense game, which is going to be needed, I think, on Florida's part. Because the winner of that game may very well be going to the SEC. Well, it's not going. It's going to cost, but it's probably going to just cost Florida potentially.
Well, yeah. Tennessee is still sitting pretty more or less on top of that, on top of the SEC East. Kentucky actually right now, because of their SEC conference wins, is actually in the number 2 spot in the East, despite their horrible record or average record.
It's funny. It's crazy how that happens too. But there you go.
Which I think is another thing that needs to be adjusted. There's no reason that, let's say, Alabama's 11-1.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say their one loss comes to LSU, just in this hypothetical made-up situation. Their one loss comes to LSU, but let's say LSU is 10-2, but their 2 losses are non-conference.
That's right.
So they're undefeated in conference play. Well, by that, the way this is set up, LSU represents the SEC West in the SEC championship game. And that's messed up. If Alabama's 11-1 and you're 10-2, you lost 2 games. They lost 1 game.
Yep.
They should go. Alabama should then, in that situation, go to the SEC championship.
Exactly. And what's funny about this whole situation was that they were trying to get out of playing it all together, but according to the SEC rules, you have to play 8 games, 8 conference games. You have to. So they were forced to play this game, which they should be. I think it's only fair to the other teams that are vying for those playoff spots,
Absolutely.
they should have to play those games.
Because, I mean, as we've seen in college football for forever, going back to the BCS days, one loss makes a difference.
Yes, it does.
You know, one loss or one win. Because some people are saying it gives, you know, these two teams in this game an unfair advantage if another team has one more loss because LSU didn't play this game. But it also could give, you know, LSU a disadvantage because they don't have an opportunity for a win when another team has one more win than they do at the end of the season.
Yep. The Charlie Strong thing in Texas is getting worse and worse by the minute.
Yeah, I mean...
But yeah, here's the kind of the thing too, and Kirk Herbstreit made a good point about this. Is, you know, he went on a rant about why people need to back off of Charlie Strong. And one of his points was that, you know, from the first moment he got there, he said it's a cesspool is what he called it, the coaching job in Texas. He said from the moment Charlie Strong walked into Texas, you already had boosters saying he's not going to work out down here without ever even seeing what the man can do, because and nobody's saying this, and Kirk Herbstreit didn't say this either, but it comes down, they were all wanting Nick Saban so bad.
Right.
And thought they could get him down there.
It's understandable that you would want Nick Saban.
But when that totally colors what you're going to feel about any other coach that comes in, then it becomes a no-win situation. And then when you're losing especially, it just piles on even worse. So I just have a feeling that I think he'll get through the season, but I'm not really sure if he's going to get.
Texas has already come out and said that they're not going to fire him during the season.
Exactly.
But I was looking at Twitter this past weekend, and there were some people who cover college football, reporters and whatnot, and journalists, that were saying that Tom Herman to Texas is all but official.
Wow.
All but official.
Well, Dad, you know, he kind of needs to win at Houston, since how you don't need to fall here at the end. Though.
You're playing at a school with a lower quality of talent, playing in a lower quality opponent conference. Not that the Big 12 is particularly impressive the last few years, but it's still, I think everyone would consider the Big 12 is a Power 5 conference, so they would consider it better than the American Athletic Conference. But Tom Herman, you know, if he can't right the ship in Houston and get them to 10-2, then it's not a good look, because really the only tough game that he has left is Memphis, and Memphis just got steamrolled by Navy.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I mean is, if you're losing to teams like SMU and you had an opportunity to be in the college playoff, at least in the top 5 probably.
Right.
If it had kept winning.
You could have been that first team out.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's pretty damn good right there to be in that position.
But I think what's still impressive is, despite the 2 losses that he's had this year and, you know, losses that he had last year, Tom Herman made Houston football semi-relevant again.
People are missing it without laughing.
At least irrelevant to the point that people are talking about Houston.
Exactly.
Talking about the Cougars. So I think, you know, of course, a lot of people were saying, in the same article that I read that said Tom Herman to Texas is all but a done deal, or all but official, he said that, you know, Tom Herman may not want the LSU job, which led to this particular reporter's reasoning that it's all but official that Tom Herman will go to Texas, because Texas is more likely going to offer the job to Tom Herman.
Possible, and if LSU keeps winning, Ed Orgeron could potentially be their head coach. Who knows? He hasn't had much luck on that front.
Right. I mean, because we go back to the USC.
Yeah.
When he took over as head coach at USC, the interim head coach there, I mean, they started winning.
Yeah.
They rallied. They looked impressive. And the thing that trips me out is kids love playing for this man.
Yes, they do.
They love playing for Ed Orgeron.
Well, some guys are just...
There's something about the administrations at these universities and how they perceive Ed Orgeron.
Yeah.
That Ed never gets these coaching opportunities, these official titles. Like, just strip the interim from the title, you're the head coach.
Exactly. And I wonder if a lot of his time at Ole Miss has a lot to do with that. Even though he's even said, came out and said, that whole situation was handled terribly. It wasn't a good time.
And I think a lot of that should fall back on Ole Miss's athletic director at the time, Pete Boone. Because Pete Boone was a horrible AD. He really killed almost all the Ole Miss programs. And like you said, Ed Orgeron was in a dumpster fire situation where there's nothing that he could have done to win. And I think that he just kind of wants to forget that his time at Ole Miss ever even happened.
And I think taking this LSU job, if he turns this program around and they keep smoking it the rest of the season, get into a bowl game, win a bowl game, which if they keep playing like they are, that's a given. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him. But let's talk about the Heisman Watch real quick. Because really, there's only one name to really watch on
right.
there. And you can mention other names, and that's fine because you got some of these athletes out there that are playing just lights out. You mentioned Browning. But really, Lamar Jackson, right now, he is the hands-down, clear-cut winner of the Heisman Trophy. Just destroying everything.
Yeah, I mean, he's the most impressive in terms. There are other quarterbacks with more passing yards, but there aren't that many more that have more passing touchdowns outside of maybe Patrick Mahomes II at Texas Tech. But they're not winning at Texas Tech.
Exactly.
But he also has the rushing yards. He has the rushing touchdowns. Lamar Jackson is a one-man highlight reel.
He is.
He even hit the Heisman pose in game, not just throwing the pose, but actually threw the stiff arm. Just was very reminiscent of the Heisman Trophy itself.
That's right.
So, I think it's a foreshadowing of what's to come at the end of the season.
I think it is, too, because barring anything catastrophic, there's no way he doesn't walk out of there with that Heisman Trophy just sealed and wrapped up. Let's get to our pick'ems, man.
All right.
Talk about these. Last week wasn't really that bad or anything. I really need to look to see which one I missed, but this week's, oh my goodness. Let's start off with Virginia Tech and Pitt. A battle of 5-2 teams. Not a whole lot separating these two right now, honestly. And I'll be honest, I don't know enough about Pitt right now to favor Virginia Tech over them.
Right. I like Justin Fuente, head coach at Virginia Tech. He was the head coach at Memphis. Really turned that program around after Larry Porter was supposed to be the savior, and that was horrible. I mean, that was just a god-awful 3 or 4 years there. But what Justin Fuente did, he had signature wins, like the win over Ole Miss last year.
Yeah.
That's what really got him this Virginia Tech job. So I'm taking Virginia Tech on the road at Pitt.
All right, you got a surging Navy over USF.
I'm going to roll with Navy. But I think this game's going to be closer than most people think.
I think it probably is too, but I like how Navy's playing. Michigan State. At the beginning of the year, I thought this is going to be a game. Now, I just think it is going to be so ugly that Michigan State's not going to want to show their faces for a while.
Right.
It's just been a crappy season for them.
And this is about to start a chain reaction. It's actually already been going. But I'm only out of the top 25... or teams that are in the top 25 playing this week, I'm only picking 3 home teams to win.
Yeah, well, all the higher ranked teams are on the road this weekend. You got Louisville, UVA. Come on, Louisville, hands down. West Virginia, they're number 10, and going to Oklahoma State.
Which Oklahoma State could win this game, but man, until West Virginia proves to me that they don't deserve me to pick them, I got to roll with them.
After an impressive win over Ohio State, Penn State is taking on Purdue.
And it's not that I believe in Penn State. I just believe that Purdue's this bad right now.
Yeah, exactly.
They're going to be I think they've already fired their coach, so they're in the process of looking for a new permanent coach, going with the Nittany Lions.
Now, we've been talking about Washington. They're taking on number 17 Utah, which is finally a game of 2 ranked teams. But I still think Washington.
Give me the Huskies.
They are just, they look good. NU and OSU, Ohio State's going to beat them so many ways.
Yeah, Northwestern doesn't have a chance in this one. So
it's just going to be ugly.
Give me JT Barrett.
Baylor, number 8 against Texas.
Well, we talked about how bad things are going for Charlie Strong. They don't get any better this week.
No, they don't.
Which is incredible for Baylor to be 6-0, considering everything that went on with that program in the offseason, with all the sexual assault allegations and Art Briles being dismissed from the team. So, but give me Baylor.
You got Georgia at 4-3 taking on Florida in Florida. Florida's ranked number 14. A game they have to win.
Yeah. And this is supposed to be. This is one of those games that's a neutral site game.
Yeah.
But it's in Jacksonville, Florida, every year. So it's a glorified home game for Florida. But I really just want to see Georgia pull the upset and throw a monkey wrench into the SEC East.
Yeah, it would be kind of fun to do that. You got number 7 Nebraska undefeated against number 11 Wisconsin.
I'm actually going with the Badgers at home.
Wow.
Yeah, Nebraska's 7-0, but they're the least impressive undefeated team I've ever seen.
So you just don't think they can beat Wisconsin?
I think Wisconsin's a tougher football program, and after Nebraska gets hit in the mouth by a legitimate team, then they're gonna roll over and play dead.
Boise State. It's Wyoming.
Yeah, it's Wyoming, so I'm rolling with Boise State.
Kansas against Oklahoma.
Well, the Jayhawks lucked up, and they actually have one victory this season, one whole entire victory. They are not getting the second one against the Sooners and Bob Stoops.
No, that fireworks display, with no defense last week with Oklahoma and Texas Tech.
Right.
Was just stupid crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it was terrible, but at the same time, if you thought that was no defense, wait till you get a load of this Kansas Jayhawk team.
Oh, yeah, exactly. You got number 15 Auburn going to Vaught Hemingway Stadium and Ole Miss.
Hey, Auburn on the road, but they're going to destroy all the emotions and hopes and dreams that this Ole Miss team had of making the postseason.
Yeah, I think it goes down the drain right here. You got number 18 Tennessee, South Carolina.
Again, Tennessee with the win.
Can't believe you're actually picking Tennessee to win games, too. You wouldn't have said that at the beginning of the season.
It's South Carolina. South Carolina's garbage. I mean,
they really are.
Like, they're trash.
They're not Kansas garbage.
No,
they're working on it.
Right. I mean, they're close.
They are working on it.
They have 2 more wins than Kansas.
New Mexico State against Texas A&M.
All right, so I lied, guys. I'm taking 4 home teams.
There you go.
Texas A&M's definitely, they're going to have an easy day with New Mexico State.
Number 3, Clemson against number 12, Florida State.
Look, Deshaun Watson's a man beast. I know Florida State's got Dalvin Cook.
I just don't believe in that.
I don't believe in Francois right now.
Yeah,
I mean, in a couple of years, Francois could be the truth, and Florida State could be the toast of the ACC once again. But right now, Clemson still has Deshaun Watson, and Deshaun Watson in that Clemson uniform, it's tough to beat.
There you go. All right, guys. That's our pick 'em. What do you guys think? What are we right on? What are we wrong on? Could be a couple of things that I don't see. It looks like pretty much not a lot of big head-to-head matchups that are just going to excite you this weekend.
Right. I mean, you're basically looking at Washington and Utah, since that's 2 ranked teams facing each other. You also have Nebraska and Wisconsin, which, the Washington-Utah game, that's a Pac-12 matchup, so it matters. It's a conference game. Nebraska and Wisconsin, number 7 versus number 11, also a conference game. They're in the same division in the Big Ten. So that'll be huge. And then, of course, Clemson and Florida State in a top-tier ACC matchup.
Yeah, because if FSU can somehow pull off a win against Clemson, that is really going to shake up that top 4 again in the play. I mean, it's going to be these next few weeks, man. It's going to be wild. It's going to be crazy. But, guys, we appreciate you tuning in once again. You can follow us on patreon.com/Sports Clash. You can follow us on Facebook at Sports Clash Radio, Twitter, Sports Clash Rad, YouTube, Sports Clash Radio. Follow us, like it, share it. Give us your opinions. Tell us what you think. Help us get the word out there. We appreciate you tuning in each and every week. It's been a lot of fun.
And for those of you who may not know, we're recording this on Tuesday night, October 25th. We have the first game of the NBA season, and also the first game of the World Series happening tonight. Both
in Cleveland.
Games in Cleveland involving the Cleveland teams. The NBA Cavaliers got their rings, got to hang their very first World Championship banner, and the Cavaliers absolutely beat the brakes off of the Knicks, 117-88 there in Cleveland.
Crap.
The Cubs and the Indians are in the bottom of the 5th inning right now. The Indians are up 3-0 to start off Game 1. So Cleveland, Ohio right now is popping off. So mad respect to Cleveland and how they're handling the sports teams outside of the Browns right now.
Look at that wild thing. Never thought it would come true. Here it is. Nuts.
The movie Major League is coming to life.
That's it.
I think the Indians, I saw their payrolls like ranked 25th out of the 30 MLB teams, or 28th.
Just goes to show you don't have to spend a fortune to win championships. We say that. They're still spending a fortune.
Right.
Baseball players make ridiculous amounts of money.
But conversely, the Cubs have the 5th highest payroll in the entire league.
And are losing 3-0. All right, guys. Can't wait to see how this all turns out. I'm sure we'll follow it up in the next few days. Check you guys later. Have a good one.